Here we go. So we're seeing how to make the other buttons. Yeah. And then of course this isn't green, so it really doesn't make for a green button. So green is, the order is RGB, red, green, blue. So this will be 0, 255, 0, and maybe 0, 100, 0. And by the way, I would never then go and code my next button. Always solve one problem at a time in programming. Figuring out what went wrong is hard enough when you're just looking at one thing. But if you've done like 10 things, and you run it, you don't know which one of your things is breaking something. So I would then always go and run it and see if I got it right. Looks good. Next one, and move on to the next thing. So we got, next is the blue button. Blue button. And it's the same kind of idea, so I'll just paste it in. And so what do I have to change? Well, I'm making my button lower down, so I'll make it maybe 450. And that means my distance function should now be measuring from 450. Hey, what would happen if I didn't change that? If I just left it at 150? What's that actually? It actually would work, but not the way I want it to. But it would do something. Shall we just try it? Let's see what happens. I'll make this blue. I'll not change the math here. So I'm going to make this blue 0, 0. Just while I'm typing this out, think about what do you think will happen? All right, so we're going to run it. So I've drawn a new circle. I got the color blue in here, but my if statement I didn't change. It's still the same if statement as the first one. So watch what happens. Now when I go over here, it doesn't work. But watch, when I go over the red, boop, it turns both of them on. Because that's the top button, right? So I have to make that the bottom one, 450. So now it's measuring the center of the circle to the mouse from there. So now that's controlled. But you can do all sorts of things. You could intentionally do that if you wanted to. That might be a thing. You want to have a bunch of things light up when your mouse goes over something else. So that if statement could be actually what you intended. The important thing is to start being able to see those connections and look beyond this mess of numbers. If you look at that, especially at the beginning of the year, if you just walked in and looked at that, it'd just be a bunch of numbers on the screen, right? So to start seeing not just a bunch of numbers, but to see that this says if your mouse is touching a button that's centered on these coordinates and has a radius of 50. Like to start seeing the meaning behind all the numbers is something that will just take a long time to develop. Maybe not a long time, but every project you'll get stronger and stronger at it. And then select the color and go from there. So that's the story behind that, and it looks like it's working nicely. Almost a traffic light. Should have done the traffic light colors. I learned a cool fact the other day. Apparently, the traffic lights in Japan are not green for go, it's blue. And the reason I found out, this is according to the internet, so correct me if I'm wrong. This is just internet knowledge. So, that's my caveat there. It could be false. But according to the article I was reading, it's because the Japanese language does not have a word for blue. And this is true about ancient Europe as well. Blue was a shade of green. I think ancient Egypt as well. Many cultures do not consider blue a color. It's just a shade of green. So although it has to be kind of greenish blue to satisfy international traffic standards and stuff, it's actually blue in their traffic lights. And that's because there's no word for blue. Or maybe they've developed a word for blue. But traditionally speaking, there's no word for blue. It's just a shade of green. And I believe there's some European languages that also have a similar thing as well. So that was a fun fact that I learned. Hey, fun fact. You want to know another fun fact? Let's find out how to make these buttons click. What I'd love to do is be able to click on a button and make the background change red or green or blue, depending on what button I clicked on. So we're going to do that. And I think that's the whole end of the class, and we'll be done after that. So let's see it. First of all, I don't know if anyone here has done any mouse click stuff. In my other blog, someone was experimenting with it. And I just want to let you know that there's actually multiple ways to do this. Processing provides many ways to interact with the mouse. So I'm going to show you one way. It doesn't mean that whatever way you've been experimenting with is wrong, but this is going to be a good way to do it. And I'm going to make a new function. And I'm kind of excited to show you. It's one of these special functions, function definition. Kind of like void setup and void draw. It's a new one, and it's going to be called void mouse released. But be careful, because we need to go beyond the bottom of the draw function. It's always a perilous thing to go beyond the bottom of the draw function. I feel like there should be a "here they be dragons" kind of thing at the bottom. But be careful. Go all the way to the bottom of your program. All the way, see that last brace? Find the last brace. And then go further. Go beyond it. And don't do this. Don't go beyond it like this. Yeah, I'm going, no, because then you're actually still inside it. That's still inside. So be careful to go past that one and go further down into the space below. That sounds so dramatic. And now you can define new functions. Remember we made void bunny, and you maybe made void iceberg or void boat or whatever it is you made. Here we're going to make not just any old function. We're going to make a special one called void mouse released. Note the capital R in mouse released, no spaces. It's got those two weird parentheses, which we're just kind of taking for granted for now. And then type in your open and close braces. I will thoughtfully sip my warm beverage. Type that down. Delish. Void mouse release. Notice it turned bold. When a function definition changes to be bold, you know it's a special function. And usually that means it's a function that gets automatically called. Is probably not the best way. It happens automatically. Processing makes that happen when something special happens. In this case, when you release the mouse. And when you click and then release the mouse. We're going to use release because processing is just too fast. There is a void mouse pressed as well. But even if you had like a Razer Death Adder mouse and you were like 500 APM pro gamer and you clicked it as fast as you could, it would still register for multiple frames in processing. And we only want it to register for one frame a lot of the times, which won't become apparent right now. It wouldn't really matter which one you use right now. But later on, when we use it, we don't want to click for multiple times. We just want to register that we clicked once. So we're going to use mouse released to represent we've clicked. And processing actually makes the code in that function run when you click and release the mouse. It just automatically happens. There's code inside of processing that is reading from the USB port, the electrical signal that's coming in from the mouse when you make that click. It's doing all that fancy stuff for us, which is all fantastic stuff, but we don't need to know it. We just make that function, and that code is controlled now from our mouse, or actually for me, from my mouse trackpad. So it's like a remote control function you turn on by clicking and releasing your mouse. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some code in there to check to see if my mouse was inside the circle, and if it was, I'll change the background color. So let's do it. I'm going to steal that if statement again. I'll type it out just to make sure everyone's good. I'll do the red button first. So clicking on the red button. The if statement is still the same. So I'm going to say if the distance between, what was it again? The red button was 400, 150. I'll let you guys decide what yours is. 400, 150, and mouse X, mouse Y. So distance between this point and that point is less than 50. Then do something. And what I'll do is I'll set the background to red. And this won't work exactly, but I want to try it out just to see what happens, and then let's think about what's happening, and then we'll see the real way to do it. So go ahead and type that up and then run it and experience what it's doing and try and puzzle it out if you can. It's a good thought experiment. I don't expect anyone to necessarily know the answer right now, but try that out, and it sort of makes sense, right? It looks like it would set the background to be red. It won't. I mean, it will, but it won't for very long, and then let's think about why it didn't work. What's that? You know why? Awesome. Let's let everyone think about it first. I'll run it right now, and then people can see in case you didn't get a chance to code it in yet. What's happening is we'll go over, our buttons are tactile and all. When I click on this one, it flashes red. And if I could click and release fast enough, maybe I could get it like staying red. Maybe I got my Death Adder out. There's certain students I've met who are just like, they have this like technique, and they're like, and just jackhammer that mouse, and I'm like, whoa, and they can like almost get it to go red. It's pretty impressive. I had a roommate in college who was, just, I don't know, weirdly fast with, I don't know, his hands. Oh, obviously not very fast with my hands as I spill coffee all over myself. No problem. I'm all good. I'm okay with warm beverages all over myself. So here's the answer. Oh, actually, go ahead, Reese. You had an answer.
I have no idea.
Oh, you don't have an answer. Sorry, Ryan. You had an answer.
Since when it releases, it turns red, but then we have a background switch.
Yeah. So remember, this code happens the moment you release the mouse, but the draw is happening over and over. It's like this inevitable draw function is happening every frame, right? So the draw function is constantly saying background white, background white, background white, background white, background white. Every 60th of a second it's doing that. And then for one shining moment, you release the mouse, and mouse release says background red, and then the draw function comes in, it's like background white, background white, background white. And so it just for that one moment, it changes to be red, and then back to being white again. Yeah, Tia. Seizure warning. Yeah, maybe we should. We'll do text at some point, and we be like, warning. We might clicking fast enough will cause possibly seizures. So, what do we do? What is the way we overcome this problem? So the answer is that I want this code to control the background function in draw. I want it to affect that piece of code. And the way we're going to do that is with variables. So we're going to change this 255. It's not going to be 255 anymore. We're going to put variables in there instead. So watch where I'm going, folks. Take a look. I'm going to go all the way to the top of the screen. And just above setup, this lovely little space here is like our table of contents of variables. Let's go declare some variables. I'm going to make an int red, an int green, and an int blue. Oh, yeah, that's good. I'm not sure if this is the best way to do it. But anyways, let's plug those variables in. I'm going to plug them into my background. Instead of doing 255, a mere white, I'll put in red, green, and blue in here now. Boop. So one's going to be the value of how much red we have. The second one will be how much green we have. And the third will be how much blue we have. Does anybody remember, what is an int? What is its default value if we just declare it and walk away? What's its default value? You might not have experienced this yet. I don't know. Did you get a chance to see what happens? What do you think? Yeah, it does. It turns black, right? So what does that mean the value must be? 0. Yeah, you got it. 0. So its default values are 0. If you don't want it to be default 0, you can say equals 255, 255, 255. You can give it some other default values. So now if I run it, it starts off white. But you know what's great about this? I can change these values. And I can change them in the mouse released. If I change them in mouse released, they will be permanently changed. So in mouse released, what I can do is, instead of setting background to 0, I can say red is now 255, green is now 0, and blue is also 0. And what I've done now is, when the mouse is released and the mouse was on the red circle, it changes those values, and because those values are plugged in to background, then it will permanently change the background. Because right now, background's always coloring it whatever red, green, blue is. So it's coloring it RGB, 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 RGB. But RGB means 255, 255, 255. If I change what our red, green, and blue's values are, background keeps firing in draw, RGB, 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 constantly doing that, but there'll be different values. And so the color that it keeps firing over and over again will change. So now, if I run it, and I click on the red button, then the background changes red, because I changed the value of those variables. And I invite you guys to the last, just less than 20 minutes, 15 minutes or so, try and make it work for green and blue as well. I regret these colors are just so intense, but that's fine. It's no big deal. So yeah, go ahead and try and make your green and blue buttons also affect, and it's actually quite similar to what's going on here. Yeah, Taya. Yeah, sure. Come on over. I also need help in cleaning up all the coffee on myself. But you know what? It's the end of the school day. I don't think anyone cares about a little coffee. Hey. Yeah, thanks for asking. That's a fantastic question. It's weird, hey? It says, oh yeah. So this is a story. Remember we were talking about going to the end of the draw function beyond the draw function? Remember that? You actually did that in the middle of drawing your buttons. So your draw function starts here and it ends there. See how it like highlights? So that's the draw function. But you want your green button in there too. So you have to get those braces to embrace all of the drawing stuff. So that brace, I delete it. I'm gonna move it down. Move it down all the way to the end here. Oh, wait, I think you had another one. Well, you had two. You said an extra one again. So, well, that's okay. So that was what was going on. That extra one that you had in there, maybe you just accidentally typed an extra one. It ended up closing the draw function, and then it got here, and it was like, what's going on? What are you doing? Are you drawing something outside of the draw function? And it just can't compute that because it's a computer, and you can't imagine a world where that could happen. So basically, you just type an extra brace in, and it should be fine. Oh, it's still something else. Oh, in this case, you're missing the first one. So that one goes missing. Another one fails. No. That might be it. I don't know. Oh, this was the animating. It's okay. Typing is hard. Yeah. There we go. Fantastic. Actually, exactly. Oh, yeah. Always put it this side up, by the way. Never you need to ask my permission to hydrate yourself. Wishing right. Oh, yeah. Because that's like, I'm not even sure what it thinks of that. This is it. Something you think it's something. But I really don't know what.
Oh, I guess because yeah, usually when you do that.
But you're not wrong. Look at that next guy. I'm gonna make some color there. Make some like Afro. Bob Ross. You know Bob Ross is like.
Yeah, I use
Yeah. So we're gonna make a digital palette. And then we'll have to make it just use Yep, you can do it.
Oh yeah.
You have to do one last thing. Look at my screen. You have your red, your color green. It's probably not nice. But it'll be good enough. Oh, you got some. Yeah, sure. There we go. And then you need a fourth one. That would be color, and it's like just an empty folder for which of those you have chosen. You always fill with brush. Brush. And then if you're looking at brush, red. And then you color whatever's in the brush.
Okay. And how would I?
Yeah. So it's like a simple thing, but it's like paste. So if you're clicking on here, you say green or blue. Here you're basically
Okay.
Thanks, Ashes. Mr. Toolings, welcome. No. Okay. I don't know where those came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just was wondering if you tried them and they didn't work out. I've got this if you need.
Oh, what's that?
I think it's a little bit better.
Okay. Oh, this looks good.
Yeah.
You know, actually, Ryan and I are waiting for a new computer for that room. You can just leave it here. That's totally fine. I can look into it. But do you need to know where it ends up, kind of thing? Like you need to check for it. Yeah. You know how there was that? There was some like refurbished computers. Oh, okay. So we were waiting for like the teacher computer there because it's like super old. It's older than the rest of the computers there. So this looks like it's this generation of computer. That would be great. But if you have a refurbished one, then put this in.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, sure. Yeah, wherever you want to put that. Okay. Awesome. I think they're still in the English room. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, questions. See a few questions. Oh, sorry, I passed Sylvie. I'll be coming back. Yeah. Oh, so many people. I will try. All blue and one green. That's okay. It's probably your if statements are just maybe not the ones you wanted. So let's click on the red button. So let's see. If your numbers are sort of the same as my numbers, I suspect they are. Yeah. That's good. Okay, setting red. Good. Why?
Oh, wait.
You see it? What is it?
Okay, I'll do yellow. Because it's mine was red.
Oh, but actually, just so you know,
Yellow.
these numbers combine together to make yellow or pink or whatever. It's all colors in processing are a mix of amount of red, amount of green, and amount of blue. If you want to change something to yellow, it's still going to use the RGB value. It still would be blue. I'm not sure if I explained that very well. Maybe I could show you on the tools. Click on tools and go to color selector and pick yellow. Oh yeah, we got it. So it's made up of 242 red, 200 green, and 29 blue. We're still choosing red, greens, and blues to make up our yellow. Yeah, so that's going to be white, I guess. It's 255 throughout. Everything will be white. And then if you wanted to change the color to yellow, you would just set like our red, green, and blue to these numbers. And then you can fill in with those numbers. And then that's what turns into yellow. So you choose values of red, green, and blue that produce yellow. Yeah, and it says blue is like it's like what's blue? It's just because you put capital B at the very top of the screen. You just go make it lowercase. It cares about capital letters. Yeah, try running that. See if you get some yellow now. So they're all yellow. Bottom which is green. Show why yellow. So why isn't it going red? Red looks pretty red, like you're getting all red, no green, no blue. That's gotta be red. Well, bugs are usually like there's a reason. They're not just like random. I mean, the original bug was random. Bug flew into the computer and short circuited things, which is nothing that they're programmed. You can see it at the Smithsonian Museum. Yeah, although I don't think that'll change it. You get rid of that. You won't see the flash anymore. And then that's good. You're setting the right thing. So why does it go yellow? There's no flash. Oh, you're doing greater than 50. It should be less of a but it's a marble. Oh. Yeah.
Otherwise, like anything outside of the button, and then they're all true except for that one. There you go. There you go. But that's gonna fix it. Yeah, I've been there too. Oh, there it goes. Well, it's got the. It's just different numbers than the one you used from the inside. That's fine. You can just change them. I think it's just lovely. That's a perfect. Oh yeah. So when you ask if it's smaller than 75, you're asking the distance from. I'll just run it for a minute. You're asking if this distance here is less than 75. So that is between the mouse and the center. Because when it's less than 75, that's when it's in the circle. So if you can imagine like a line that's going wherever that goes. Yeah, this is where it's bigger than 75. Over here, anywhere outside that circle is when that distance is bigger than 75. So when you're saying, like, when you release the mouse and the distance is bigger than 75, you're saying if you put them here, and that's legit. Like you can have that as the line of code to put it back to white, for example. But that's not what you're trying to do. When you click on the red, it turns yellow because this was true outside of this one, and this one was true outside of that one. Because that was loud, then it shows that color. Because that distance is greater than that. So when the allocator mode goes this way, this way, so if that was true this way.
When you use what you really like, awesome.
Switch it around and see if that's the inside. Yeah, makes sense. Oh, it's because you have a background. Yeah. That was what David was saying earlier. Thank you. Good stuff.
Also, if you make R-lighters, then you have to whatever.
Yeah. And not blue. Oh, that's okay. But wait, you want it to be white? Yeah, let's find out. Can I take a look at your code? Oh, I see. Because you're using green. Yeah. It's not what I was intending. So I was meaning for this to be just a number from 0 to 1. Not a hashtag color, but 255. Colors can be made up of like a single hashtag or 3 integers. Amount of red, amount of blue, amount of blue. So my intention was those 3. If you make one of those hashtag, it does now it's white. Click on it, it goes red because we say yeah, so change that to 0. And next class we'll actually look and see how to do the hashtag. Because you're right, it'd be nice to be able to choose a particular Yeah, I think that technique we did is maybe you can just show me what happened. After we just comment not really. Okay, I see that. You want to make a toggle button. So that's the difference. We're not going to go to class. There's definitely a way to do that. That's a big jump, actually. So that's going to manage a room. Set that variable.
Oh, yeah. 我看滚，叫爸爸就给你看，叫爸爸就给你看。
That's kind of a beautiful thing. I'm sure you can make this. Thanks for coming back to Sylvie now. And then there's some more questions somewhere around here. So thanks for asking the questions, everybody. Is this for the animation? Hey folks, the bell's going to go in a minute. If you want to stay behind for a little bit, I don't mind to answer some questions, but I will have to go pretty quick. Hopefully you got those buttons to work. If not, we'll start next class with a bit of a review. Oh, I just realized I left the recording running. Oh, well. Just don't watch the whole video. when I start trailing off, and you just hear me talking far in the distance. Anyways, thanks for your question. Oh, you can't have two mouse buttons. Take a look up here. I'll show you. For me, if I want to make another if statement, I would just keep on going further down in my mouse release function. So I might make another if statement that's all in my single mouse release function. And this one's for 400, 300. And this one's changing green. And then I might make another one, and that's for 400, 450. Yeah, makes sense? Awesome. That one will be for blue. And if I run it, I think that'll work. Red, green, blue. Yeah, there we go. Hey, wow, if you're still watching this YouTube video, wow. I'm impressed with you, dear viewer.